What's up, y'all? This is Vic Hill, 007 Streams, the 83K way. We are here in season 2, the new location, and it's still as beautiful as ever. Today, I have the pleasure of bringing on Chandler Jet Jones, not to be confused with Chandler Jones.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Chandler Jet Jones. He has always been faster than me, so I will always call him that. Back in high school. Dude, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. Would love for you to just, tell everybody where you're from, what you're about, what you've done, all that.
Yeah. So again, my name is Chandler Jones. I'm from Los Angeles, California, born and raised. Grew up in LA, Inglewood, with my mom. My mom was a single mother. My dad played football as well. Well, I'll get into that, but I played football. My dad also played. He played for 8 years for the Vikings and the Saints. And then, grew up here in LA. My mom kind of was the backbone of the family. She really held it down for me. Her and my grandma. Yeah, that's pretty much a little basis right there.
Yeah, I haven't seen your mom in years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
A very long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
But usually with whatever guest we bring on, man, we kind of start from the beginning. We kind of talk about the journey and some of the mental, physical kind of challenges that have happened along the way. I know personally from high school, like you were always gunning for like NFL, football, like you were all about it. Mm-hmm. I could only imagine some of the challenges along the way, through, going to San Jose State. Tell us a little bit about how all that manifested for you and some of the things that, because you're smaller stature, right?
Yeah.
But you're fast as hell. And you can't. I don't know.
Man, it's an interesting journey because I think when I look at the average, I don't like the average fan of football, mm-hmm. and just us in general, a lot of people are more my size than they are guys that play in the NFL. Yeah. So like growing up, I always thought my dad was about 6'2", 6'3". My mom is about 5'4". So I'm like, I'm gonna get a growth spurt. Like I can't wait. It's gonna come. My dad had a late growth spurt. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna get a late one. I'm gonna grow. I'm gonna jump. Man, and I did not get that ever.
I didn't get mine either.
Yeah. So I was 5'8", coming out of high school, about 145 pounds. Mm-hmm. And looking at the average roster of receivers, and with the prototype of guys that they want, it's like 6 foot and above, in about 190, around that weight. So growing up for me, I always had huge aspirations and huge goals of wanting to get there and wanting to become that. But I just got, the short end of the stick and was on the smaller side. I went to Bishop Montgomery, Montgomery High School. You represent, in Torrance, California, which for people who are from LA and know a little bit about Bishop, is a basketball school, not known for football at all. Yep. And quite frankly, I didn't really know much about Bishop in general when I was getting ready to go there. My mom, she was like, you're going here, it's a great school for education. And one of my good friends that I grew up with, Justin Cobbs, we played sports together growing up. He was going there to play basketball, and he was going to play football at the time too. So my mom was like, and Justin's going, like, this is perfect. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. It was between there. I tried to get into El Segundo because I played Pop Warner in El Segundo, and we were trying to put our team together there, but it didn't work out.
Is that how you met Matt?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So that's how I met Matt Simmons. Yeah, and so I ended up at Bishop, and it was a great fit for me. In football, the team wasn't great, and not necessarily. I think we didn't really have a lot of resources compared to the schools that we were playing against, like the Gardena Sarahs, who had the Crespies, like the St. Burns, like all those schools who had these guys coming out year after year to go play college ball. We didn't really have those resources to be able to do it. I ended up there. And I transferred my junior year to move to Florida to go live with my dad. So I missed that 1 year.
Was that after?
Yeah.
I left. Yeah. Okay, I didn't know that.
I left my sophomore year, transferred, came back my junior year, and then just fell back in love with it and just played and ran track. But I went to a bunch of different camps and was trying to go play at the next level, but I didn't have any scholarship offers. Nobody really wanted a small guy from LA who was really fast at the time. They didn't really see the vision, but I did. You know, I saw the vision. I knew what I needed to do to get to where I wanted to go. Yeah. But yeah, so I ended up hitting a bunch of camps, never got any offers. Saw a bunch of guys that I were playing against who were, and part of me was like eating me up, but I felt like at the same time that was kind of pushing me to do better. And I always felt like I had a chip on my shoulder, not only just because of my size, but because there was guys that I were playing against that were getting the big looks, and I felt like I was better than them. Yeah. And that was kind of the reality of it for me. So then I ended up running track my senior year. At the end of track season, I had a really good year, and I had a track scholarship to University of New Mexico to run track. Okay. And in my head, it was like awesome. But at the end of the day, I wanted to play football. So I talked to the coach there. I was like, hey, I really appreciate the offer, but will there be an opportunity for me to play football as well? And he shut that down immediately. Wow. Yeah, and I said, well, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not going to be coming here to run track. So, and that was that. And then was going to play at LA Harbor Junior College. I had got signed up for classes and everything. Was about to go to like their summer workouts and everything. I was about a week or two away from getting started with that when I got a call from San Jose State about wanting me to walk on there. And then, the rest was history from there. I ended up going with my mom. She had like a gut feeling that it was the right place and the right move for me. Yeah. I'd never been to San Jose, but at the time, like I never had gone there and never even heard of it. But for some reason, my mom always knew it was best. And at the end of the day, growing up with my mom, it was like whatever she said goes anyway. So San Jose was where I was going. Yeah. Like, all right, cool. Go Spartans, baby. Yeah. But yeah, it worked out to be perfect for me. Ended up walking on there. Didn't play my first year. I redshirted. And for me, it was just that year was really about just honing in and getting bigger, and just learn as much as I can, because I had a really good group of coaches there who were super knowledgeable, but also had a really good group of guys that I came in with that they were just grinders. So we just worked and worked and worked. And yeah. So you having the chip on your shoulder that whole time, what kind of work did you have to put in outside of your normal like team practices? Yeah. Did you do outside work? Yeah. Speed work? For sure. So one thing that we always kind of preached was there's this thing in NCAA called CARA rules. And those are like a certain amount of hours that your team is allocated towards practice, weight room, anything like football related. So during the season, I believe it was like 40 hours. In the off season, I think it's like 20. So those are the hours that are, every team, you can only do this. Outside of that, like it can't be mandatory. So for me, it was like, all right, everyone's putting in this amount of time. Yeah. I got to find ways to put in more. Okay. If I want to get there. Because one, in my mind, I'm always going to be smaller. So I just felt like I had to do more. There was more for me to constantly be. Yeah. So I felt like there was always going to be more things that I can do. So I would spend a lot of time early on. A lot of time was in my playbook and in the weight room. And one, it was just because I wanted to be a student of the game. I wanted to know really the ins and outs of our scheme and why it is that we're doing certain things. Like, I'm not a quarterback, but I wanted to know what he was thinking. And I wanted to know why when he's looking at a certain thing and making a certain check, or why he, is seeing the rotation of the defense a certain way. Like, why is he going to that receiver versus this receiver? Right. Or why is he making this call instead of this call? Like, I wanted to know those answers. So a big part of it was just being in my book, and then watching a lot of film, seeing defenses and understanding, coming into college, everyone's like, okay, cover 1, cover 2. You're running all these different coverages in high school, like And I felt like I had a pretty good understanding of it, right? But then get to college and there's a bunch of rules to it.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if the number 2 goes here, now your eyes have to transition here. So like I wanted to understand that because I felt like that would help me play faster and help me be a better ball player. So
wow,
that was a big jump for me early on.
Seems like it worked out.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, definitely. It definitely worked out. I mean, my freshman year, I redshirted my true freshman year. I started as a redshirt freshman, and then I started the rest of my time there. So it's like just leveling up each year and just trying to get better and better. And I felt like I did that. So
I saw like a couple game-winning, touchdowns, bowl game.
Definitely. A lot of fun times, man. A lot of fun times. Game winner against Hawaii. The fans rushed the field. Yeah. It was a crazy game. It was like 12 total turnovers in the game. It was wild. They had 6 in the first half. We had 6 in the second half.
Did you have one of the turnovers though?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just checking.
No. I had 3 touchdowns. So that was good. That was a good one. I try to have more highlights than lowlights,
So from high school to college, that was already a challenge, and you had to turn down money and an opportunity in one direction, and you kind of stayed true to like, hey, nah, I got to turn that down because my vision is this. And then you made it. At any point during your San Jose time, did you ever feel distracted from, like, I'm still trying to get to the NFL, that's still the goal? Did anything ever kind of take away from that during that time? Or was it pretty much just like, nah, I'm going?
Yeah, I feel like for the most part it was pretty smooth. I had my sophomore year, I had an injury. Luckily for me though, it happened in the last game of the season in the third quarter. So like for me, I was like, okay, I'm not missing time. I'm not missing game time. Like I was happy. The injury sucked. I ended up messing up my shoulder, dislocated my sternoclavicular joint, which it was like a super rare type of injury, and they did like this whole study on it and everything. It was crazy. But that happened in the last game of the season, so I missed the spring after that. Which that was kind of fine for me because it happened the last game of the year in November. I came back for like finals and stuff. I had a sling on, so like I had like a kind of a medical exemption for a lot of different things. Like I had someone taking notes for me in class, and I was like all hurt. But so I still had to get like a bunch of schoolwork done, but they kind of worked with me to do that. And then I just had a bunch of off time in the spring where guys were working out and doing all that, and I kind of was just hanging out watching. I couldn't really do much, so which I enjoyed it. This was like my first time to relax for a little bit. But I can't really say during that time that I've had like a lot of there was a lot of hardships. I felt like at that point in my life I was just like head down and was just getting after it. Okay. So like everything kind of worked out for me during that time period, which life ebbs and flows. And then senior year,
I mean, you had a spectacular year.
Yeah, I had a monster year that year. I want to say I finished like 5th in the nation in yards or touchdowns, one of the two.
Yep.
And then like 8th in receptions, and then I want to say I was like top 10 in yards or reception. One of the two flipped, but yeah, I had a really good year. And like we ended up going 6-6 that year, but we didn't play a bowl game. And a lot of stats that guys have count with the bowl game. I didn't get that extra game, and I felt like if I would have got that extra game, I always say this, like if I would have got that extra game, I felt like I would have finished like top 5 and everything. Because by the end of the year, like I was rolling, and offensively we were really putting up good numbers. In the last game of the year, like I had like 150 yards and like 3 touchdowns. Like I was feeling good. So but yeah. That bowl game would have helped out big time.
So what was the process after that? I mean, your next obvious step was NFL.
Yeah.
And like, what was that process like for you going?
So once the season ends, everyone kind of signs with the agent, then figures out where they're going to train at. Well, I kind of went a different route. I didn't sign with an agent. At the end of the day, like in my mind, in the draft, all the positions are slotted. So like wherever you get drafted, there's going to be a certain amount of money that you're going to get regardless. So like you can't really negotiate that at that point. That was like a newer rule that they kind of had put in. So I felt like I didn't really need anybody to do that for me, and I didn't want to have to pay someone back. Like in my mind, I started off as a walk-on, so like I had to fight for everything that I got. So like I was like, if that's going to be the case, I don't necessarily need anyone that I'm going to have to pay on the back end. Like, oh, here, I did all the work, you know, you did a little bit, here's a little cash to, you know, which there's a lot of different kind of things that go with that. I ended up not going with one and went on it my own. So I picked my own place I was going to train at, which was back here in LA. It was Velocity Sports Performance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I did
in Manhattan Beach. Yeah. So I trained there, did all my, and I pretty much trained there a bunch like throughout high school. When I came back during college, I would go there a couple times. So like I was familiar with the place. So I went back there and did my training, and then I ended up going to the East-West Shrine game to play in, like the All-Star game that year. So you have the Senior Bowl, and then the next one after that is kind of like East-West, and they're kind of like tiered, like top ones, you know. And that was a pretty big one, so I ended up playing in that. And then I came back after and kept my training going up until my pro day.
Okay.
So yeah, did all my training until then. That was until March, and then finished up with training, and then finished up with training, did my pro day, came back to LA, and I was just kind of in limbo at the time waiting for the draft. And then draft came, didn't get drafted, which I was like hurt. I was like, man. But again, it was kind of the story of my life, right? Like always been undersized, always been overlooked. So I just kind of chalked it up to that, like it's gonna happen. That's just how it is. So I ended up after that signing with the Cleveland Browns. Went there, and I was having a great camp. Like in the OTAs, I felt like I did really, really well. I started to run with the second group, and I was making a lot of plays. And then we come back home after OTAs, and then we go back for training camp. Training camp, I'm feeling good. I felt like I was in the best shape of my life. Tore my hamstring. And mind you, like when I hurt my shoulder, I was like, it's good. The last game of the season, so I'm not missing time.
Right.
This is the first time where I've like really had an injury where I was like missing a significant amount of time.
Oh, okay.
So like the recovery for my hamstring, at first they were like, oh, it's gonna be, you know, like a month. I was like, dang. Training camp. It was like the beginning of training camp. Didn't even get to play in the preseason game at the time.
Oh my goodness.
So I was like, dang, all right. So they ended up giving me injury settlement. I came back home to LA to do treatment and get healthy again. Well, that month ended up turning to like 3 months.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you tore your hamstring.
Yeah. So I tore my hamstring.
3 months.
And it was out for some time. And like that was my first time where I like really like dealt with like injury. And it was more mental than it was physical for me. Yeah. Like it sucked trying to get healthy again, and they had to, you know, do a bunch of stuff to get me back together. And I had to do a bunch of things in terms of my treatment to like get back to full strength. But it was like hamstrings are tricky, you know. When you like break a bone, you could kind of tell when that bone heals or like do things like that. Like when it's a muscle like that and it's such a big muscle that you use for all of your movements in terms of running, like, and you feel healthy at a time, and then you try to go full speed again, and then that's when it pulls again. And like,
you don't know how much stress you can put on it.
Yeah, so I was constantly battling that, and it was like also battling the clock, because it was like I need to get back on the field. I'm getting calls from teams like, hey, are you healthy? We want to bring you out for a workout.
Wow. And
I'm like, yeah, I'm almost there. Like I'm at like 80%. Just give me, you know. And it's like at some point it's like I'm healthy. I don't even care anymore, you know. Because in my mind it was just like I just need to get there. I just got to get there. So I ended up getting healthy enough. Going to a couple tryouts, ended up getting signed with the Colts on their practice squad, and then I went there, was there for like a month and a half, and then after, like I had tweaked it again in practice one time, and I was like, and all these thoughts came back to my mind again, like, dang, But yeah, so after I tweaked it, I kind of kept pushing through it, and I was fine. It didn't like do it enough where I had to like say something, I guess.
Did you like did that take away from any type of performance though, do you think?
100%. 100%. And
just
like,
thinking about it.
Yeah, definitely. And you gotta think about like my style of play.
Yeah.
I'm fast. Like that's my call. That's what got me here. That's my calling card, right? And it was like after that I would open up, but I wouldn't open up full speed because I didn't want that to happen again. You know? So then they ended up letting me go. We played the Ravens and had a bunch of injuries, like tons of them. So then, so after that, they were like, "Hey, we got to bring another guy in on defense to help because I think we lost a D lineman. So we got to bring another guy in on defense. We're gonna let you go, but stay here, like because normally they let you go, fly you back home, and you figure it out from there. They're like, stay here, and then we'll bring you back in a week." I'm like, all right, cool. And like, mind you, when I got there, I got an apartment. Just signed my lease and everything. So they like, "Hey, we're gonna let you go." I'm like, Oh
my God.
Like, what? And it like just got my apartment, just got all my furniture, all types of stuff. And I was just like, damn. But
that's how it works though.
Oh yeah.
They're just like, all right.
Hey, we're gonna let you go. Your flight leaves at 5.
At will employment.
Just like that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So what was the play after that?
So then I stayed for the week. They ended up bringing me back again. So I was like, all right, cool. They kept their word. It worked out. So I ended up coming back. Well, then like 3 or 4 weeks again after that, they ended up letting me go again. And this time it was like permanent. They were like, yeah, we're gonna move on. Like we want to get a bigger body. And I was just like, all right. So I ended up packing up everything, shipping it all back to LA. But luckily, like I still had the lease for the place. Mm-hmm. So one of my teammates that I had, I was like, he had just got there like a week or two before that. I was like, hey, I got an apartment. If you want to like rent it out, look, I'll let you stay there. You can just Venmo me the money for it, yada, yada, yada. And it ended up working out. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna save money on that. Yeah. So I ended up
piecing it together.
Man, yeah. So I ended up moving back home. And after that, I ended up getting a call from Tampa, who I worked out with previously, and they're like, all right, we want to bring you in now, practice squad. I'm like, all right, cool. So I was there for the rest of the season that year. And then, yeah, same thing, just trying to stay healthy and just make it, just last until the season ended and I could get back in some rehab and feel like I can get healthy again. Yeah. And then season ended, came home, training off season, and then came back for OTAs, and then after the draft the next year, they ended up letting me go. And then that's when I ended up going to Canada. So it was just a lot of movement within like a year. I probably moved like 5 or 6 times.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was wild.
But you were dedicated. You were like, nah, this is what my goal is. I'm not letting anything stop me.
Oh yeah, this is the journey. That's part of it, which, like, I don't know, it's pretty tough because there's a lot of, I think, mental toughness that you have to kind of either have or develop throughout it. Which, like, before that, I felt like I never had dealt with, a lot of adversity.
Yeah.
And I felt like if I had, it never altered or like it never made me feel a type of way.
Yeah, take a step back.
Yeah, and like at the time, as I'm going through it, I didn't think anything of it. As I got older and I'll kind of talk about that later, but I like went back to school and got my master's in counseling education, and started talking more about mental health and stuff. That's when I was like, okay, I was going through a lot during that time period. And I mean, I would just flat out say like I was depressed during that time, and it was it was tough. Just kind of working through ball and working through life, and constantly feeling like I'm looking over my shoulder because at the end of the day, like it could get pulled away, taken away from me just like that.
I think a lot of people, they'll see an athlete and they'll be like,
yeah,
they got it good.
It's a lot of glitz and
but everybody has those times or those periods where they go through it too. Yeah. I've had mine. I know,
not for sure.
Plenty of people who've been on here have said the same thing. But outside looking in, you're like, oh, they live a great life.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, but, you know, one, it takes work. There's all these sacrifices. There's shit I have been through that you may not know about. But yeah, so I could only imagine. I didn't even know half of that. Yeah. You know, but that's wild.
But I mean, it's like you chalk it up to it being part of the journey, you know. So it's
all
like, yeah. And then like at the time, like I wouldn't change what going through some of those things for the world. Now, granted, I wish none of that never happened. I still, you know, I was healthy the whole time, right?
Same.
But I feel like that has kind of shaped me and molded me a little bit, you know, throughout my journey into who I am now. So I, like, at the same time, I feel like I'm happy for going through that.
Of course.
You know?
Of course. And you got your master's.
Yeah. So that was great.
You played in Canada.
Yeah.
How was that? That must have been.
Oh man, Canada.
I personally love Canada.
Absolutely love it. I was in Montreal, my favorite city that I've ever been to. Loved it in Montreal. Now, granted, I was there from May to November, so before it gets real cold. Real cold.
Yeah.
So like during the summer, it's awesome. The city is great. You have people coming from all over because they have festivals all summer long. So they have like a comedy festival, a jazz festival, and they shut down the downtown area, and they have stages all throughout downtown, and people would just come perform on the stages. Like I'm trying to go back as soon as I can. I loved it out there. But the people would just perform. So throughout the summer, like throughout my time playing there, I get back in town. Once I get there, we have camp in this one like country town, like an hour out of the city. Yeah. And finally, once we get to Montreal, I'm like, yes, I'm back. You know, right. And the city was awesome. The organization at the time, we weren't winning a lot of games, and that was tough. And I was kind of going through like my injury stuff, trying to get healthy and playing, and that was tough as well. But like I fell in love with that city. It was awesome. It was a really good experience. I met a lot of really good people out there, people who I still like talk to this day, and I just it was just a great. I feel like coming from where I was to going into that situation, I felt like just kind of brought me back. You know,
it was rejuvenated.
Yeah, it kind of rejuvenated me a little bit because, like before that, I was in Indiana and it was, you know, November. It was cold. It was snowing. Like
that's different.
Yeah. I just had gotten a dog at the time, so and I got her when I was back home in LA. So I would like she want to go. You know, I had to take her out to go use the restroom. I'm like, I'm from LA. Like it's snowing out there. You trying to go outside? Like, but in Montreal it was beautiful at the time, and they have like an underground city. So like you'll go, you can catch a subway wherever you have to go, and you may not even come up above the surface. Like you can go to all these different shops and malls and stuff down underground. It was awesome.
Oh, I gotta visit.
Yeah.
You just marketed that Montreal to me.
I'm telling you. Let me know when you do, because I'm coming. Nah,
been to Vancouver.
Awesome. Yeah.
Been to Vancouver with Dom, and that was my first time to Canada. That was.
Yeah. Canada was awesome, man.
That's cool.
So yeah, I spent 2 years there, and then I came back in November, so I missed the snow, and I was back home training, and then the next year I go back again. So like, it was pretty good.
Convenient too.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow. So after Canada, what was the move after that?
Yeah. So after I finished there, that was kind of I finished my contract, and I was kind of like at the time. Playing wasn't really in my heart anymore. Partially, mainly because my body. I felt like I couldn't like just train like I was training, and I just feel like mentally I just wasn't there anymore. So I just kind of made the decision like now it's time for me to figure out what my next step is going to be. So after that, I went back home to LA, kind of started to figure out what my next move was going to be, and then I reached out to the head coach that was at San Jose, because at the time I played for that guy. His name was Ron Carriger, and then he had just gotten fired from San Jose. But like before that, I talked to him about coming back to be a graduate assistant, so coming back and coaching and getting my master's. And he was like, "Oh, perfect! Like I think you'll be great for it. I'm bringing you on." Well, he ended up getting let go, and I was like, "Oh." Well, I gotta figure out my next step now.
There goes that.
Yeah, but luckily, the guy that took on the job after was my receiver coach, my redshirt freshman year.
Okay.
So he ended up taking on the head job there, and then I ended up coming on as a GA. But I was working on the defensive side of the ball, so it was like a whole new world for me, learning all the stuff that I was like, going against as a player. Yeah. But I really got a chance to learn a lot of really good stuff under Derek Odom and a bunch of the guys on that staff on the defensive side of the ball who just kind of took me under their wing and just kind of groomed me. So I got a chance to learn a lot, and then also it got my master's, so it's pretty good.
Yeah,
pretty good thing.
How's that transition been?
It's been really good, because for me, I think just navigating what it is that I'm trying to do next, and I know I played with a lot of guys who, when we were done playing, it was like, I got my degree in communications, or I got my degree in, something that they said I need to take, so I could play ball. Yeah. But it's like, did I love that, or like, what do I need to do now? And it was, and I think for me, when I started getting my master's in counseling, a lot of the stuff that I was learning spoke to me, because a lot of it was about just advocating for people who weren't able to really, speak for themselves sometimes, right. Especially in education. So you're talking about the students. Yeah. Well, the students I was working for were student athletes, were football players. And for me, like, I think of all the guys that I played with in college who were going through tough, circumstances while they were playing college ball, and it was like, this is supposed to be the time when everyone says is the best time of your life. But for some people, it was like a living hell. You know what I mean? It was miserable. They weren't happy. Like, just things were going on in their lives, and it was like, how can I now get into coaching, but also be able to advocate and like make sure that they have the resources that they need in order to make this, the right situation and what it is that they want, like, for them to be able to get out of it what they want. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of like my frame of mind as I was going through the process. So really, like, I mean, I'm working in football, and that's what I always want to do, but I want to be able to do it where I'm serving the athletes, where I'm serving the guys who were in my shoes, because I feel like I had some good coaches who, if it weren't for them, like, I wouldn't have made it as far as I did, or I wouldn't be the person I am today, So I want to make sure that I'm able to do that same thing for the next wave of, young men that are playing.
It seems to me that, like, you made it.
Yeah.
I mean, you accomplished what you originally set out
100%.
to do. And then after, you kind of carved it or molded it into something that benefited you even further down the road, and that's where you're at now. Mm-hmm. I mean, that to me that's further than most people get.
Yeah.
No,
100%.
I mean, being able to help other people and still be in the, in the football world. Yeah. So that's amazing to me, man.
No, I appreciate it. Appreciate it.
All from LA.
Yep, right here at home, baby.
So you're still up at San Jose?
No. I'm currently right now. I'm back in LA. Hardly home, but always rapping. I'm back here now though. But yeah. So I did some coaching stuff, and I took an internship with the Packers.
That's right.
I felt like, for me, it was an internship on the scouting side. So working in the scouting department, trying to find the next wave of athletes, and that's kind of what I got into. So I'm kind of in limbo right now.
All right, internship with Green Bay, and for scouting. Mm-hmm. So, and how recent was that?
So I started that in the summer, so it was about July, and then finished that up back in September. Came back home to LA after, and then it kind of been in limbo. So they're like, "Hey, we really loved you, thought you were great, all that good stuff," which was a really good experience. They're like, "But we're not able to bring you on right now," and I'm like, "All right." They're like, "But we want to bring you full." They're like, "We want to bring you full time, but you just have to kind of wait on us right now." And I'm like, "Okay." So they're like, "We're gonna send you home, but when we come back for like around the time where it picks up for scouting is like after the football season. So you have all the pro days, all the college all-star games, all those different types of things.
Okay.
So like when that kind of gets going again, they want to bring me back for that, so I can kind of get my feet wet and get that all started. So I'm kind of just waiting right now for that. So I've been back home for 3 or 4 months now, just kind of waiting and getting ready to get going with that.
Wow. I mean, that sounds like the Army, let me tell you. It's like, oh yeah, we really like you, but wait. But that makes sense. That's pretty cool. And especially with your resume, I feel like it's pretty well-rounded when it comes to, I mean, you got counseling, you got, you actually played, you did extremely well, like, so that sounds like something that, I don't know, it seems like you would enjoy.
Yeah, it's something I love doing, because I mean, if I'm there and I'm in house, it's great because one, I get to watch a bunch of film and I get to watch practice. Mm-hmm. I'm around football. That's what I love. Like that sounds like the perfect job to me, right? Like, but then also on top of it, there's a lot of guys on the team who are around. I'm 30 right now. They're like a couple years removed from me, or you have some guys on the team who are even my age, right? Mm-hmm. So like, I'm able to relate to them and talk to them. True. And just kind of pick their brain about things. And it's like, I mean, I feel like I've walked their shoes. I've been in their shoes before. So it's like, why not, be able to have a guy like that in house? And that's kind of what I want to do. Just be able to watch ball and make decisions and watch a bunch of tape on guys who I think will fit with the team, to make the team better, but also be able to help mentor some of the guys who are on the team and just like, help them be the best version of themselves as well. So yeah.
You're already wearing green too. Dang.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's up, man. I mean, I'm glad you were able to come just so you can share some insight into all those things, because I had no idea, and I'm sure there's so many people who, and not just with football or being a student athlete, but haven't necessarily gone through adversity yet. They're on their way, and they may hit that instance where like it's their hamstring incident, right? Mm-hmm. They have their own situation where they gotta like, hey, you need to put your back up against the wall and just keep forging ahead. But man, I'm amazed. I'm super happy for you that you've even accomplished all those things that you've accomplished, and then you're still progressing.
No, I appreciate it, man.
Some people quit.
Yeah, it's wild because like, before today, I don't really sit here and talk about I've done this, and it's like, you don't really look at it like that. It's just, you're just going through life, but then like being able to sit and talk about it. And in my counseling program, we did a lot of different things like reflecting on our upbringing and reflecting on our lives, and it was like, dang, okay, I could be proud of some of the things I've done. Like but at the same time, it doesn't feel like that every day. Like you're just kind of going through life. Yeah. But yeah,
that's awesome, man. Well, look, I'm gonna close this out. I cannot say thank you enough for coming down. I don't know how long I've known you, but it's been a while.
Man, it's been a long time.
It's been a long time. But just to see everything, man, it's been a blessing to watch and to stay in touch. Mm-hmm. That's another big thing that a lot of people kind of take for granted. It's like, oh yeah, I know that person, adjacent. I haven't talked to him in years.
Yeah.
But again, man, I appreciate it. I hope you all enjoyed it. Chandler, why don't you tell them where they can find you?
Yeah. Well, on socials, you can find me Instagram, Twitter at JetJones89.
It's the Jet.
Yeah. Other than that, that's about it. I don't really have, anything, a website or anything like that.
No, you're good, man. We'll link them to you and make sure they keep up. Probably at Green Bay.
Yeah.
It's gonna be cold.
Yeah, I got some cold gear. I lived in Idaho for a little bit, so I got some stuff.
All right. Hey, thanks y'all for tuning in to the 83K Way. We will catch you next time.
We out.